Grand Theft Auto 4, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, Red Dead Redemption, Max Payne, Watch Dogs. Pretty much everybody has an all-time favorite game. If not a single game, then an all-time favorite series. And there's a wide range of reasons as to why the game or game series is their favorite. Be it they've played it since they were kids, or because it allows them to really blow off steam. Forget the world exists, even for a few hours. But for others, it's much more complex than that. Their favorite game or game series changed their lives forever. The game left such an impact on them as a person that their outlook on everything as a whole is entirely shaped into something new. And more often than not, for the better. Video games, much like movies, leave an impact on anyone, providing you play the correct ones. They're not all about just driving around and killing shit, but rather, they tell an incredible story. One that really gets you to think and even go as far as question everything you think you know. Whatever your favorite may be, you have your reasons as to why that is. Such reasons can be anything. For me, there's one game series that's truly changed the way I look at life. That's changed me as a person. And ever since playing it for the first time, my way of thinking and the way I view things has changed forever. Life is Strange. This changed everything for me. I remember some time ago seeing something in relation to it. I was around 13 when the game came out, so I couldn't have been much older than maybe 14 at the time. I remember seeing it and thought, seems alright. Might have to play it sometime if I can get a hold of it. Okay, yeah, that was a complete fucking lie. I saw the artwork of the game and thought it was weird because Max looked like she was no older than me. That it was like The Sims or something. What a perfect dumbass I was because the artwork looks nothing like that. A few short years later, I'm a little older and game sharing on Xbox with a friend at the time. One of the passes he has allowed you to get the game and I thought, I'll have to download that sometime. But never got around to it. Fast forward to early May 2022. I was scrolling on TikTok and happened to find a video of a YouTuber, guy by the name of True Villain, playing Life is Strange. It was his reaction to Warren beating the brakes off Nathan, and then it finally hit me. Wait, don't I have Life is Strange as a courtesy of said guy I used to run with? Went and checked, and sure enough I did. I downloaded it overnight and fired it up the next day after getting home from work. Little did I know the ride I'd be in for. I almost beat the game in one sitting. It drew me in that much. From the time of Max's nightmare at the lighthouse until midway through episode 4, getting to the farmhouse if memory serves, I did not put the controller down until an episode was done for 12 hours. Everything was amazing. The soundtrack, the art style, the gameplay, everything was nothing short of absolutely fantastic. But the one thing that drew me in the most? The characters. Max Caulfield and Chloe Price. The Life is Strange embodiment of yin and yang. Now, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't because of our blue-haired, rebellious, brash, foul-mouthed Chloe Price specifically. She alone was enough to have me hooked on this game from the moment she came to Max's rescue in the Blackwell parking lot. I truly believe if it wasn't for Chloe being in the game, I likely wouldn't be nearly as hooked as I was upon playing Chrysalis. I love Chloe as a character. She's not as black and white as most secondary protagonists in video games tend to be, at least from my experience. That could also just be that I'm playing the wrong games, but who knows. She's complex, she's complicated, and most importantly to me, she's relatable. Chloe's backstory is tragic, to say the least. She lost her father in a car accident at a young age, and on top of that, lost Max for a time the same day of the funeral. She later had Rachel Amber, but then lost her too. Chloe suffered a triple whammy in such a short amount of time, much like me, and grew into a rebellious teenager. I can confidently say that had I been any older when I suffered through similar circumstances, I likely would have turned out almost exactly like she did. But where she truly shines in my eyes is that she reminds me of someone important to me who I lost in a similar manner to how Chloe lost her father. Chloe reminds me of my deceased childhood best friend. For fuck's sake, the devs even got her looks pretty fucking closely to his. Side note, I need to stress this, my childhood best friend is unfortunately not the same friend that I mentioned in the Q&A. The childhood friend I mentioned there had passed away a few years after me having played the series. just for clarification. His name was Jason, and even at a young age, was a lot like Chloe. Rebellious, brash, loud, foul-mouthed, snarky, everything in between. The real kicker, however, is that they even look alike. Tall stature, slender build, blonde-haired and blue-eyed. I also can't show his face for the sake of not wanting to reveal information about his remaining family. So, y'all will have to just take my word for it on that. Thanks. The only differences are that Jason was a dude and younger than me by a few months, while Chloe's a woman and has Max beat by over a year in age. Beyond that, as time went on, the resemblance became more and more uncanny. And in the same regard, me and Max are a lot alike. Quiet, introverted, nerdy, self-conscious, more so just a face in the crowd, never preferring to be the center of attention. I'm an entirely different person in real life compared to how I am on here. Playing through the game for the second time, in preparation for me playing the rest of the series, it was more apparent than it had been the first time. The mannerisms of Max and Chloe, respectively, were stupidly reminiscent of mine and Jason's. Stupidly reminiscent of how we were as kids, just that Max and Chloe were almost a decade older than we both were. Everything about it felt familiar, felt nostalgic. But what struck me the most? Life is Strange showed me something that I've always wondered for years. What would life have been like if the accident had either never happened or if Jason survived? And I'll be damned if it didn't show me two alternate realities of what my life could have been. Now, if you haven't played the game, of which, why are you here, go play it, the entire premise of the story is built around Max saving Chloe's ass over and over and over and over again while rekindling their lost friendship. But even if you remove certain aspects that make the game what it is, you have a story of two best friends reuniting after a stint of being apart, and they function almost as if nothing ever happened. Like I said, the more I played the game, the more I saw Jason and Chloe, and myself and Max. And the more I saw those two bond and rekindle their friendship, this excludes the Pricefield ship. I need to establish that now. The more I saw mine and Jason's dynamic, with just a few details rewritten. The stories are almost exactly the same. Two friends who are polar opposites, getting up to a bunch of shit and making lifelong memories. There were only a few details here and there differing from what I once knew as a kid. The mischief, the introvert reluctantly following the extrovert helping the introvert gain more confidence in themselves, everything. It was all too familiar. But then, you get to the alternate timeline. I must have sat on the choice menu for a solid 10 minutes just trying to figure out whether or not I honored alternate Chloe's final request in the beginning of episode 4. But ultimately, I decided to grant it. I couldn't stomach the idea of letting her continue to live in pain. Now, after going back to the original timeline, getting to a decent enough stopping point, and turning off the game for the night, well, technically morning, it was like 5 a.m. when I stopped. I was in the bathroom washing my hands before I went to bed, my mind running 9,000 miles a second. That was when I put 2 and 2 together. I just saw a fictitious, alternate reality where Jason survived his accident. Chloe was paralyzed from the neck down as a result of her accident, much like how Jason would be if he survived his accident. I looked in the mirror and my jaw hit the floor at that revelation. Everything finally made sense. Max was me. Chloe was Jason. Life is Strange is a fictional alternate timeline where the accident never happened and Jason was still alive. That's when my connection to the characters had grown dramatically, specifically my connection to Chloe. Chloe was someone born to run, born to go buck wild. Jason? Shit, if he wasn't running around, there was a problem. Neither of them deserved a life confined to a wheelchair, doomed to never walk again. Chloe was still herself at the end of the day, and Jason would have been as well, but for people born to run, being forced to not even walk is a living nightmare in and of itself. Can they manage? Sure they can, but them having to make the best of their new life is not really a life for them at all. Cut to the scene where Max and Chloe find Rachel dead and buried in the junkyard. Chloe's breakdown at the fact that Rachel was there lying dead right in front of her was something that felt all too familiar to me. The anger that followed, especially, was what I related to. Being pissed at the world because one person you had that made living bearable now isn't alive. I was angry for years on end because Jason was killed and I was left here to grow up alone. I didn't understand why it had to be him. And the one who got him killed was dead mere minutes after, not long after Jason himself was killed, so I had nobody alive to direct my anger at, unlike Chloe. She had Nathan and Jefferson to direct her anger at. I quickly got to the end of the game the next day, and then I got to the final choice. Sacrifice Chloe or sacrifice Arcadia Bay. Judging by this entire rant, it's pretty obvious which ending I picked. I wanted Max and Chloe to finally stay together forever. But I can't deny the fact that my curiosity was hella piqued and decided to look up the alternate ending. That was a tactical mistake. I sobbed. Hard. Bearing witness to Max having to sit back and overhear the gunshot, it was almost as if I witnessed my own best friend die right in front of me and neglected to try and save him when I had the means to do so. It was also when I realized that my attachment to Chloe as a character ran deep, deeper than even I knew myself at the time. That was also around the time it really cemented that Chloe reminded me of Jason, and they even looked alike. I looked at the game so much differently from that moment on. It was still what it was, an episodic, point-and-click science fiction thriller about two friends rekindling their friendship and doing some kind of detective work. But it tackled everything I endured, from loss to the depression to the jadedness that followed in the years after. It forced me to look at everything much more objectively, with my emotions still invested but disconnected at the same time. It forced me to look down the barrel of the gun used to kill what I once knew, to confront my past without me even knowing it. It made me realize that nobody runs from their demons forever without eventually growing tired. And the more you run from them, the more at risk you are being pushed over the edge with no room to get your footing. The only choice you have? Turn the fuck around and stare them down. It's a scary thought at first, but damn it if it isn't necessary. Later, when I played Life is Strange Before the Storm, I related to Chloe even more. Here, we see a 16-year-old Chloe clearly still mourning the loss of her father and the departure of Max shortly after, before she became the Chloe Price we all know. She struggles to really process everything and even outright rejects the notion of her mother moving on from her father by way of dating David Madsen, whom of which, as we all know, later becomes Chloe's stepfather, or step-douche, as she commonly refers to him as. But the more I played the game and really thought about everything I'd seen, the more I started seeing why Chloe had trouble moving on. Much like me during my time of mourning the loss of Jason, she had nobody with which she could really talk about her feelings to. Her mother was mourning the loss of William herself, and when she felt like she was ready to move on, she started almost pretending like he didn't exist, hiding old photos of her, Chloe, and William, and replacing them with ones of her and David. Not to mention, even though David was trying, he didn't help Chloe's situation with how he conveyed himself. It didn't help matters that Max basically went AWOL during her stint in Seattle, being short in text with Chloe or even outright not responding. If Chloe didn't even have her best friend, her other half to talk to, who did she really have? The world moved on, her mother moved on, hell, even Max moved on, but she still felt stuck in the same endless loop, just like I did. Having to see everyone else around you manage to go forward in their own way while you yourself are stuck in a constant state of war is confusing, agonizing, and fucked up in its own twisted way. Then we get to the heart-wrenching scene when Chloe finds the car her father was driving on the day of his death in the junkyard.
Dad.
Seeing Chloe break down how she did after smashing the car felt all too familiar. The rage, the sorrow at the fact that the one we love is gone. The painful realization that there's nothing else we can do to change it. And all we can do is scream and cry. And on top of everything else, we have nobody whose shoulder we can cry on. All we can do is let the emotions flow when we're alone. It's downright fucking awful. Chloe really had nobody to talk about everything with. All she wanted was somebody there for her. Somebody who would help her shoulder the emotional baggage she was suffering from. And if she couldn't get that from her best friend or from her mother, the only biological parent that was still alive, then she truly was, or at least felt like she was, alone. The dynamic between Chloe and her mom was reminiscent of me with everyone else that was around in the years after, even with my own mother. For more context, between the ages of 9 and 10, I'd lost 2 family members, both of whom I was ridiculously close with, to natural causes within 3 months of each other. My maternal great-grandmother had succumbed to a rare and aggressive form of cancer after a long-standing battle with it, with my paternal grandfather having died of a heart attack shortly after he turned 60 and I turned 10. The exact same month, only a few weeks later. A few months after all of that is when Jason got killed. All of that put me in a state where everyone was dealing with their own shit, dealing with their own forms of heartbreak, but here I was, dealing with the triple whammy of a lifetime before I'd even become a fucking teenager. While even then I acknowledged that everyone has to heal, everyone has to get to a state of normalcy on their own, I was still 10. A 10-year-old who suffered through more than average in his own right. As time went on, as I got older, I steadily began to comprehend what grieving actually was, had a much greater understanding of what it meant to grieve. But at that point, my grief kept fluctuating, specifically finding myself stuck in the anger. I was already an easily frustrated kid, but this intensified everything. I was much more prone to losing my shit. Little things would send me flying off the hinges verbally, and I constantly questioned why I was as angry as I was. Throw in a likely case of raging undiagnosed ADHD, and that multiplies things to a higher degree in its own right, especially the anger. No matter who I found to try and talk about it with, even my parents, it felt like nobody truly understood what I was saying. I recognize now that the anger was a cry for help, from someone to just tell me things were gonna be fine. Half the time, I just needed to get my feelings out, just needed to express what was boiling over on the inside, but I was almost always shut down, later reaching a point where I just couldn't even begin to express any sort of emotion without being told to stand down. Nobody seemed to understand, and it brought me to a point where I just felt as if there was no point in talking about it. Seeing how Chloe and her mother's relationship was in the years after William died was reminiscent of all of that. Like a near identical blueprint was constantly being shoved in my face. Now, I didn't start breaking shit, didn't start verbally abusing anyone, didn't commit a proverbial act of rebellion, and I'm not gonna pretend that I was completely justified in acting how I did. In fact, I'd argue quite the opposite. But at the same time, I was a kid, and what exactly could I have done when any expression of my feelings in the only way I really knew how was constantly met with orders to stand down? It just started feeling pointless. But throughout the game, we see the development between Chloe and Rachel Amber. I didn't go the Amber Price route, so in my playthrough, they were just best friends. Nevertheless, we start to see a side of Chloe that we had only seen with Max during the events of the first game. Chloe finally found someone else with whom she considered her other half, the yin to her yang, the same dynamic that she had with Max during her childhood. The development of that friendship was something that Chloe had truly been searching for since Max had left, and by the end of the game, she finally had what she used to once again. Someone there for her. Chloe didn't feel alone anymore. Max wasn't there, yes, but Rachel filled the void, took up the mantle. By the end of Before the Storm, we see a montage of moments during Chloe and Rachel's friendship. We see Chloe happy as can be with the one other person who became her other half. It's like she said,
Rachel saved my life.
As we know from the first game though, it didn't last forever. Here she was, feeling like she had the world by its ass, then Rachel up and disappears without a trace. No contact, no word of warning, no nothing. Chloe was alone once again. Now, we, of course, know the reason why this happened. It's because of Nathan Prescott and Mark Jefferson. But Chloe doesn't know anything. She thinks she's been abandoned again. That's when we see her become the stone-cold, emotionless yet emotional rebel we all know in the first few episodes of season 1. She let her guard down one time and would later regret the fact that she did. That causes her to develop the I don't care because I don't love anyone or anything persona. She didn't have her father, she didn't have Max, she lost Rachel, and for the first time in what seems like forever, every one of her issues came back with a vengeance. And I relate to these moments heavily. From loss to betrayal, this series made me relive moments from my own life, but rewrote them in such a way that it was as if I was looking at the whole situation from an outsider's perspective. I knew what lied down the beaten path, and it was as if I was making the decisions for myself, only without the headache of actually being present in the situation in that particular moment. Based off of my own experiences, oftentimes doing the opposite of what I did in the game, it's often better to do what your gut tells you, even if it conflicts with your mind. Now, Chloe, throughout all of Life is Strange Before the Storm, reminded me more of myself than she did Jason. She was conflicted, hardened, standoffish, angry, unwilling to even try to move on because she just didn't know how. If you haven't been through anything similar, it changes you, quiets you, damn near kills you. You reach a point where you're tired of being who you've become, but being who you were isn't an option anymore. And moving on from what happened feels almost like disrespect towards who you lost. You feel like by moving on, it means refusing to acknowledge that who you lost was even important in your life, even if that logic doesn't entirely make sense in the grand scheme. At that point in your life, you don't want to let anyone in, typically out of fear that you're going to lose them like you lost so many people before. But sometimes, we're not given a choice. Someone bores a hole through the walls we've built up to protect ourselves and gives us the ride of our lives that we've desperately needed. But sadly, even that isn't without cost. Seeing Rachel and Chloe's dynamic was amazing in retrospect, and like I said, even though I didn't go the Amber Price route, it was still an amazing thing to see. Hell, I even had someone similar to Rachel in my life as well. The only difference is that she didn't pass away, but, well, she made her share of mistakes. Much like how Rachel hurt Chloe by pursuing Frank, back at the ass end of 2020, this girl in my life hurt me by doing something similar, even though it seemed like we were gonna end up together. I won't get into all the details here, we'd be here all day, but in the end, I guess I lucked out unlike Chloe. Me and the girl managed to work shit out. We both grew up, and she's now one of the few people I'm willingly close to. Sure, it took me a while, longer than I care to admit, and I have my reservations, my bouts of what could have beens, and we didn't end up dating at the end of the day. But we're not the same as we were then. We grew up, we moved past it, we've made amends, and looking back on it, that's what the first game is about. Moving on. Making the tough calls, trudging through what feels like the death of us, making the conscious decision to move on despite how broken we feel. Finally reaching the point of refusing to stay stagnant anymore. Coupled with the fact that not only was it showing that, but also the what could have been of a lifetime for me, shit, it was fucking therapeutic. Now, playing the farewell episode, that was like a punch to the heart. In that episode, you play as preteen Max on the final adventure before the main events that caused both her and Chloe to grow up. You have one final time of being pirates, of overall just being kids. Then Joyce walks in the door with two cops following behind her, and it's at that moment we're faced with the final tear-jerking moment. You just relived the story of the last time Max and Chloe saw William alive. The last time those two girls were truly innocent before being corrupted by the harsh reality that is the world in which we live. Watching the funeral and young Chloe breaking down while clutching the tape recorder and listening to Max deliver what seems to be her final message to her best friend was the saddest thing I'd seen in Life is Strange since looking up the Sacrifice Chloe ending of Season 1. I truly bawled my eyes out. Y'all caught glimpses of it if you watched my playthrough. That was one of the moments in the series that reminded me of the days that followed since being told Jason was killed. I truly empathized with Chloe throughout the entirety of Season 1 and Before the Storm because I'd been through similar, if not almost the exact same, moments in my life. Sleepless nights, waking up in tears, and just trying to pick up the little pieces of your heart. Figuring out how to continue after tragedy, after heartbreak, is probably one of the hardest things to do in life, because it's not like there's one definitive method to the madness. Everyone copes differently under different circumstances. Some manage to be lucky enough to have people around to talk to, or even go to therapy for it, while others aren't nearly as fortunate. The less fortunate usually end up internalizing their emotions only to have them boil over later in life, much like Chloe. And we find ways to cope with said emotional baggage by way of numbing the pain, oftentimes in dangerous ways. Chloe had a flat-out rebellious phase, while I was more of an emotional time bomb waiting to go off. But rather than trying to disarm the bomb itself, I was simply ignoring the clock and pretending it didn't exist. I mean, I didn't know how to disarm a bomb, and it felt like nobody was there to help. The first 2 games forced me to relive some of those moments, the moments I felt I couldn't survive. And I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, because it was like I was an outsider looking in who knew what lies ahead. I saw a lot of myself in what these characters endured, and even though a lot of it was more of a metaphor at most in comparison to my own life, it still sent a clear enough message all the same. One of the real kickers for me, though, is that the events of Season 1 take place from October 7th through October 11th. The storm being set to ransack Arcadia Bay on Friday, October 11th. Yeah, October 11th is Jason's birthday, and depending on which ending you picked, Chloe is either alive and with Max forever on October 11th, or being buried next to her father. Making matters even more coincidental, the year in which the game is set is 2013. Jason was killed in 2012. Yeah, that's a little jarring, to say the least. Even now, the fact that the years in which these events happened are so close together is what makes me think that I was somehow meant to play this game. And it wasn't until almost a decade after he passed, and subsequently about 7 years after the game released, when I finally got the message. The stars had finally aligned or some shit, and I gave it a go, kicking myself for not having played the game at any point sooner. However, one thing is for certain. I regret absolutely nothing ever since firing it up for the first time. The point of this entire video that is kind of all over the place is that since playing Life is Strange 1 and Before the Storm, I'd been shown a new perspective about life itself. Life is Strange helped me come to terms with and accept the fact that Jason was gone. For the better part of a decade, I struggled heavily. How can he be dead? What kind of fucked up world do we live in? It was hard. Sure, it got easier over the years, but couple that with having almost nobody to talk to because you feel they wouldn't understand or that they wouldn't listen, and you wonder how anybody can even remotely manage to function. It helped me reconcile with myself when I felt like I failed in regards to the girl I mentioned, to accept that we were just idiot kids that made half-assed, poorly thought-out decisions, but still doing what we thought was right. I searched for the why around every corner, trying in vain to find the reason why I'd been dealt this shitty hand. Desperately trying to find an answer. But from firing up the game for the first time, from seeing Max in her nightmare to seeing her rip up that fucking Polaroid, I got my answer. Sometimes, the outcome you think is best is often far worse than the one you received. And the one you received is often better than the one you wish for. Why? Because life is strange. This reigns true to every aspect of the branching timelines in Life is Strange as well as in real life. I often wonder what would have happened if Jason was saved, if Jason never died in the accident, or even if the accident flat out never happened. I would wonder what would have happened if I'd been chosen at the accident of 2020 by the girl I mentioned, or if I'd been chosen in the months following. The truth is, nobody knows a thing. Nobody knows how life would be if the alternative happened. Nobody knows how Jason's life would be if he survived, if he wasn't involved in the accident, or if the accident just never happened at all. Nobody knows whether or not a relationship between me and the girl would have happened. Sure, Everyone has their moments where it'll come back and hit them over the head with a baseball bat, where one thing will set them off. But that doesn't mean that we haven't accepted what is, or haven't started to let go of what could have been, or that we won't ever accept it. But no amount of overthinking will result in you factoring in every potential outcome in existence. There are just too many possibilities, no matter how small and minute they are, that can pan out. This is where the classic quote from the game comes into play. This action will have consequences. Nobody can truly tell how life would be if that one thing was different, because there's just too damn many other things that can, and likely would, unfold in its place. We saw that when Max went back in time to the day William was killed in his accident. Max hid the keys, went back to the present day, only to find out that even though William survived, Chloe was involved in a car accident instead, and she was paralyzed from the neck down. Max didn't think the accident would still happen anyways, only with Chloe being injured instead, and was horrified at the reveal that Chloe was now a quadriplegic. She was even more horrified that she had to go back and willingly let Chloe's father get killed in the horrific manner in which he originally was. I think it was then that Max had realized no amount of fucking with time, no amount of changes to the past would ever set things on the straight and narrow. It would just create a new set of chaos all on its own. All that remained was there and now, and what originally used to be. That's the factor that comes into play during the ultimate final decision at the end of the game. It's due to that factor that I believe, even though the devs have stated there is no one singular canon ending, that Max would decide to sacrifice Arcadia Bay and save Chloe. I believe that Max can't stomach the idea of her being the only one in existence that has lived the week of October 7th through 11th, 2013, twice in a row. That she ultimately would be a reason that Chloe died at the hands of Nathan Prescott's unpredictable and unhinged outburst, as well as Jefferson's sick, twisted nature in the bathroom at Blackwell. Although, not a direct reason, but I'd argue a reason all the same. Or at the very least, she'd feel like she contributed to it. Even if justice is served because of Nathan's outburst, and the plans of Jefferson unravel as a result, it's due to the fact that Nathan killed Chloe, and that Chloe died a depressed woman who doesn't know that Max is back in Arcadia Bay, nor that Rachel was murdered because of Nathan and Jefferson. No amount of therapy, no amount of talking about it would help Max overcome that kind of trauma, because it's fairly reasonable to say that nobody would believe her. Not to mention, who the fuck would sacrifice Chloe Price? She and Max deserve their happy ending. Hearing Obstacles by Sid Matters during the final minutes of Chrysalis and Polarized was amazing. The song choice remains one of my favorites in gaming to this day. Every now and again, more than I'm willing to admit, I'll look up the song and just sit in my chair singing along. It honestly helps bring me comfort, even though the song has a relatively somber tone to it. The lyrics, even though some people have complained that it seems like Sid Matters can't write lyrics due to the fact that they don't rhyme, describe the process of coming to terms with the things that have happened in life. The process of growing up and moving on. Maybe even the chance at a new life, to start over. This song perfectly describes the journey that Max and Chloe were on. They're not kids anymore. What's done is done. What happened has happened. All we can do is move on. Because life is strange. This game, this series, is definitely one I will never forget. It's left by far the biggest impact on my life and on me as a person. And with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you, Don't Nod. Thank you, Square Enix. And most importantly, I want to say thank you to the writers, the actors, and actresses that brought this game to life. I truly cannot think of anyone else that would be able to embody these characters the way that the people behind their voices could. Moreover, I can't think of any women who could fill the shoes of Max and Chloe the way that Hannah Tell and Ashley Birch have. They did a truly phenomenal job at bringing the two characters to life. Their work changed the lives of many people as well as myself. I know that Ash didn't return as the voice of Chloe and instead was a writing consultant for Before the Storm until she reprised her role in Farewell, so I can't forget Rihanna DeVries either. She did a great job at voicing a different version of Chloe before she became the Chloe we all know and love. And as odd as it was at first to not hear Ash, it was a welcome surprise, and I thank her for her work as well. Life is Strange has truly been one hell of an experience, for me and for other fans alike. As you all can clearly tell, this series has such a stranglehold on my life. Pretty soon, for me, it'll be time to play Lost Records Bloom and Rage, and that already looks Life is Strange coded to the nines. In the meantime, even despite this video kind of being all over the place, I hope this brings y'all up to speed. This took a while for me to make, and recording it was a bitch in and of itself. I appreciate those of you who stuck around till the end. It means the world that y'all would hear me go on this long-standing tangent of mine, even despite it being kind of all over the place. That y'all would listen to a part of my life story. I know I kind of went AWOL for a little bit. This wasn't easy for me to do, and it took a lot out of me, so thank you. With all that said, y'all stay safe.
Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra.